Now, the BuckeyeXtra podcast with Rob Oller, Bill Rabinowitz, and Joey Kaufman from the Columbus Dispatch.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the BuckeyeXtra football podcast. I'm Joey Kaufman, joined by Bill Rabinowitz, Rob Oller in snowy Dallas. We're recording this on Thursday, so about 24 plus hours before they kick off at AT&T Stadium for the semifinal between Ohio State and Texas. And we'll break down the matchup. How are you guys doing?
Well, we're doing this as we tend to in a hotel, in my hotel room. Is the temperature okay in the room?
Let me see, what is it over there? I can't.
86. Is that okay?
23 degrees
23
Celsius.
degrees. He keeps it on Celsius. Only Bill keeps it on Celsius. Well, it's on Celsius.
Okay, fine.
I don't know what Celsius is. It probably is 86.
Are you comfortable?
I'm a little cool.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Obviously,
That's what happens when you sit at a laptop for 42 hours straight and don't move.
Why is that?
You just sort of atrophy and just kind of get no blood circulation.
Is that a word?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's nothing. Yeah. Whatever.
Obviously, big game. Cotton Bowl is tomorrow. Ohio State is favored, or as Steve Sarkisian would say, Texas is a massive underdog. They're playing that up a little bit, right? Right, Joey? Right?
Yeah, it's in Sark's sportsbook, it seems Ohio State's favored by 3 touchdowns. But in most of the sports books, it's Ohio State by, I think, 6 points or so.
Yeah. I said he dropped more BS than Bevo.
It's a good line.
Yeah, it's not a bad line.
You got in the paper?
I put bull manure.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. I think BS probably would get in.
We'll see.
Hey, bosses, would BS get in?
And Ohio State's favored because they've blown out Tennessee and especially Oregon.
6-point favorite.
Yes, Texas has struggled. They lost to Georgia in the SEC championship game. They had a tussle with Clemson, and they had a huge scare against Arizona State. They're up 16-0 early, had to go to double overtime, survived a 4th and 13. Quinn Ewers threw a touchdown pass. They prevailed. Texas is a very talented team. Quinn Ewers is certainly capable of leading them to victory over Ohio State, but they've been inconsistent. And the one thing, Ohio State was inconsistent in the regular season. They haven't really been, except for like the end of the second quarter, beginning of third quarter. Other than that, it's been pure dominance by Ohio State in the playoff.
Well, until the college football playoff, Texas had not beaten a ranked opponent all season,
right.
which was when we were poking holes in teams' resumes going into the playoff seeding. That was a case where maybe Ohio State should be ranked higher than them, and they have now beaten 2 teams, Clemson and Arizona State, which were ranked.
But they were
overtime. But I'm just saying they played 2 ranked teams during the regular season and lost to both of them, Georgia and Georgia.
Georgia's twin.
Which is remarkable. In terms of the SEC, everyone talks about how great the SEC was.
Right.
The unbalanced scheduling certainly has its quirks. So right now, Texas is in some ways kind of Indiana-ish, where they benefited from a schedule.
Penn State too.
Yeah.
Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal, guys, with Texas. They are maybe the most underachieving program out there, right? I mean, this is
Texas. What are you talking about over a period?
We're taking the 3 mile high
since
view.
the Vince Young days.
Yeah, and that was Look at before the Vince Young.
Texas should be Ohio State.
They should be Ohio State. In fact, they do have A&M. They have Baylor. I get that, but they also have a state that has how many million people. 30 million people or something.
But it's in the South, so they can play year-round. I mean, all that kind of stuff.
Well, they've got all the advantages.
Yes.
And it's a huge fan base. It's a big school. They have a lot of alumni, but they've just kind of underachieved. And you talk about this reputation of being soft. Until recently, that was their whole thing. This is just sort of a finesse soft team. And they kind of had soft coaches in a sense. He's nice guy coach. I love Mac Brown, but he's never going to be confused for Bill Belichick, in terms of tough. And then I just think through the years they had these guys that were just wine and cheese. It's like a wine and cheese school. It's a little bit Michigan of the South, except with sort of that toughness.
Well, Tom Herman was their coach for 4 years or so.
Yeah.
The former Ohio State offensive coordinator. Came from Houston. He was successful at Houston, goes to Texas. And I think, I don't know exactly what happened. I think there were a lot of politics involved in Texas.
Yes.
University of Texas Athletics.
Oil money.
There's all, right, a lot of fingers in the pie. And I think that you have to be a kind of a special coach to be able to navigate that. And Tom Herman wasn't able to do it. He wasn't a disaster at Texas, but they were not an elite program. So they hired Steve Sarkisian. And he's had success. I mean, give him credit.
It's the second year in a row they've made the playoff because they made it last year in the 4-team structure.
You know what amazed me? And Sark said this today. 20 years since they played in the Cotton Bowl.
I was
How about
stunned by that too.
20 years since they played in this game.
Right.
And you're right down the road. 3 hours in Texas. That's
I was saying you're right there. Yeah, I was saying Texas.
Yeah. So
is it like a country? Is it like a whole other country, Texas?
No, but it's so sprawling. Like Donovan Jackson was saying, like in Texas, it takes you half an hour to get anywhere.
We know, Joey. We're joking with you. Texas builds itself.
California, California too.
Country to itself, kind of.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Texas can secede as far as I'm concerned. But whatever. Let's move along here.
Oh, actually, it's in their constitution. I'm pretty sure.
That's what I'm saying.
They actually can.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, but you're pushing them that way.
Well, if they want to go, have at it. All right, back to football.
We have not been drinking, by the way.
I just say, I think I said this last time. If Ohio State protects Will Howard, and they play, I think I just wrote 80%, 90% of what they did against Oregon, they win, and they win it all in my book. I don't know where you guys are on that, but
yeah, I think Texas's problem is that they haven't shown that they can be consistent for 60 minutes. I think if they can play at Texas's level for 60 minutes, it'll be a tight game. Quinn Ewers is a very talented guy. The run game has been very consistent. It's been all or nothing. If it gets going, which will be very tough against Ohio State's run defense, and I think that's the key to the game. If Ohio State can make them one-dimensional and put pressure on Quinn Ewers and force it, it's fundamental to get shaky, and I can see them just harassing him into turnovers. I mean, the thing about the Oregon game is Ohio State didn't have any turnovers in that game. The defense didn't create any turnovers in that game. They still just dominated the game. In offense, I think the difference is one team has Jeremiah Smith and one team doesn't.
Yeah. The difference, I think, of this matchup for Ohio State than the other playoff games, this is the best defense that they have gone up against at this point in the season.
But Tennessee and Oregon were pretty good.
Yes, but Texas is second nationally in interceptions with 21, fourth nationally in sacks with 44, creates havoc. I think that's they do that at a higher level than Oregon or Tennessee did. They have a Thorpe Award-winning quarterback in Jaheed Barron.
And they're in the SEC.
Well, but I'll say that going back to your point earlier, Joey, they've only played one team before the playoff who was in the top 25, Georgia, twice. And so they haven't played, the best teams in the SEC. They played the Mississippi States and those kind of teams. And so I don't think they've been tested the way that Ohio State's going to test them. And
no, they did not face the cream of the crop SEC offenses like Ole Miss this year. So to your point, yes, but they have some good players on the defense.
They're good. I'm not slamming.
In terms of like each level of their defense, the defensive line to the linebackers to the secondary, they're very well balanced on that side of the ball. Oregon had a great front in Jordan Burch and Derek Harmon and all those guys, but maybe he was a little vulnerable in the back end, and Ohio State took advantage of that. Tennessee, I think, maybe has the closest defense because they had a good front and they had an All-American cornerback as well. But this is probably the most complete defense where you have a harder time selling me on Texas pulling off any sort of upset of Ohio State is the offense is just anemic where they go through these prolonged stretches where they do not put together enough scoring drives. They come out of the gate very hot. They're one of the higher scoring teams by average in the first half of games, but slowed down that allows Arizona State to come back in the last game. So that to me, I think will be interesting as well because Ohio State's had these really fast starts in recent playoff games. They've scored on the first possession of both drives, but Texas is typically a fast starting team too. So you got two horse races who are going Thoroughbred is going to come out.
Well, the one thing about Texas defense, they have bigger defensive backs than Oregon did. And for Ohio State, which has big physical receivers, Jeremiah Smith, and Buka, even Carnell Tate, they're bigger guys. Texas will be able to match up a little better against Ohio State than Oregon did. But you're right about the offense. I just don't know that Texas, especially if they can't run the ball, is just going to have enough juice. They've got some good receivers and playmakers, but I remember watching the SEC championship game, and I thought, do either one of these teams want to win this thing? I mean, it was pathetic, honestly. I mean, for an SEC championship game, two highly ranked teams, I was very unimpressed. I don't think that was Texas's best day. I think they're better than that. I think they are certainly capable of beating Ohio State, but that game especially, I thought they're not that good. Now, Ohio State wasn't even in the Big Ten championship game, so I wasn't thinking Ohio State will beat these teams. Who knew what Ohio State was going to do in the playoff?
Full disclosure, I picked Texas to win it all. I mean, preseason and up to pre-Tennessee game. After the Michigan game, I just thought they would even it up against Georgia. I thought Georgia would win against Notre Dame. So
very honorable.
Wrong.
You haven't hedged or
wrong? No, I haven't. Well, although I picked I mean, I'm actually on record because we had to make our pick.
Right.
I think before the Oregon game, I did.
You could have changed your prediction.
You know what? At that point,
what's your prediction now for this game?
I have Ohio State win. If I could put it out there, I have Ohio State winning like 30. I think I've got 30-17.
Oh, wow. So you two touchy.
I just don't, on one hand, you guys are talking, I'm thinking, is Texas the best team Ohio State's played overall? And because Oregon, you think it's got to be Oregon.
I think it's Oregon because of Gabriel and the way their offense could make plays. I think it's still the best, most complete team that Ohio State's faced. Because going into the Oregon game, Oregon did not have a really significant flaw. They ran the ball well. They protected Dylan Gabriel well. They could get pressure on quarterbacks. They did make big plays.
Yeah. Who did they beat, though?
Oregon?
Yeah, they
Ohio State.
Well, right.
Penn State.
Boise.
Yeah. Boise, they beat Penn State.
Yeah, they beat Penn State. That game was a little closer than I thought
but it was really a 1 or 2 touchdown game the whole way. It wasn't. Penn State never had the ball.
Yeah, I think Oregon's the best team Ohio State's played.
Right.
But I think Texas.
And Oregon during the regular season before the playoff beat 3 playoff teams.
Yeah, although, that's always like Indiana, joke.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, let's face it. Well, though the quarterback was playing on a torn ACL.
I think Indiana's problem was they were the very first playoff game, and they got beat soundly. I mean, it was a misleading final score.
Yeah.
So everyone just dumped on Indiana. If they'd seen some of the other games first, they'd probably dumped on those teams. Look, Indiana had a really good season.
Great season for the Hoosiers.
But what'd you call them?
Cowpokes.
Oh, jeez. It's my son's school. I got to be a little protective about you.
Okay. Moving right along. By the way, we got to talk about these credentials. Why do you have a blue credential and Bill and I have pink?
Well, they originally gave me a photo credential.
Well, I have a photo credential.
You may want to get that changed.
Well, you want a photo credential.
No, you want a regular credential.
Well, this is photo.
I have field access at all times.
That's a photo. I'm not sure that's going to get you where you need to go there, bud.
We'll find out tomorrow.
You might want to look into that before you show up at
It'll
AT&T.
be fine. It'll be fine.
Okay. I just was curious because we have pink.
I assume the field space is more coveted than press box space, so I think it'll work out.
Okay.
You can go with that.
Yeah. You ride that one, buddy.
Rob and I will be doing all the reporting tomorrow night.
Yes. I can tell you'd be down there waving from the field. Help.
I've got an iPhone. I can take pictures.
Hey, it'll be like a high school sports game where you cover a high school game where you go on the sidelines.
Keeping
and
the stats.
Right, yeah. So I haven't been on this. I don't think I've covered a football game on the sidelines since high school.
Good luck with that. Anyhow.
Although they don't let you go near where the team benches are, so you can't really walk it the same way.
No, you're in trouble.
Let's plug some stories that we've written. You want to do that? Have you written any stories down here recently that you want to plug?
No.
Okay, I'll start. I did write the whole 80%, 90%. If Ohio State can play that, they're going to beat Texas and win it all. Wrote today about Steve Sarkisian, Sark, saying that they're massive underdogs in this game and how that's a bunch of, again, we talked about it, BS. I'm sure there's some other ones in there, but, you write something, when you're writing this much, you write something 3 days ago and it feels like it was 3 weeks ago.
I've forgotten most of what I've written. The last thing I wrote was on Cody Simon, the linebacker.
The most recent stuff is what you remember.
Yeah, and I actually wasn't there for the scrum after the Rose Bowl when Jim Knowles said that he predicts that he'll be future president of the United States. So I asked Knowles about that last night, and he fleshed it out, and I talked to Cass Cody about it. He kind of had this sheepish grin on his face like, I'm not really into politics, and I appreciate the compliment, but, But you talk to anyone at Ohio State, and they just gush about him. He's everything that you want to be. They say the same thing, and that's what they say. He never does anything. He does everything the right way. And for a guy like him, it reminds me a little bit of Curtis Grant 10 years ago. But Curtis Grant was actually like a bust.
Oh, was that in the book? The Curtis Grant. Was there a chapter just in Bill's book on Curtis Grant?
No, there wasn't.
Okay.
Maybe it'll be as good as Cody's chapter.
Yeah.
And so Curtis Grant really was a bust until his senior year when he kind of got with the program. Cody Simon's always been with the program. In fact, it's impressive that he didn't leave. He played behind Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers, even though Knowles said he's just as good. And
listeners, I don't think you need to read Bill's story because we're hearing all of it here, right? This is like a preview of a movie. We've heard the best parts. So,
well, I'm going to leave out the best part.
Oh,
to read it
tease.
In dispatch.com.
I think you just teased it. You're a pro.
I did.
I'm sure it'll be excellent.
Well, it's already out there. Thanks for
reading. Joey, what have you written?
I wrote before we came here about Will Howard, Will Howard, the Ohio State quarterback.
Okay, thanks.
The Texas quarterback certainly is well known around Columbus. Quinn Ewers, who spent 4 months at Ohio State in 2021, sort of in some ways the perfect encapsulation of a college football quarterback in this era. Involved the transfer portal, involved NIL.
And you said it. So you both said it.
But everybody knows Will Howard has some history with Texas as well. Was 0-3 as a starter against them while at Kansas State. And last year's game, they had a chance to win. He helped them come back in the second half, rallied from a multi-touchdown deficit. Game goes into overtime. Kansas State gets the ball, and Texas is 6, first and goal, and they don't get in the end zone. They don't get any points.
Did they win with a touchdown there?
No, they lost.
No, I mean.
Oh, they were down by a field goal. Okay. So it's 33-30.
Oh, so first and goal from the 6.
And he gets sacked on the last play. So that's his last image against Texas. And he's been so good this year of taking, that Michael Jordan meme where he's just, and I took that personally. And Will Howard has had a run of that because when they played Penn State in November, Penn State didn't recruit him, and he took that personally. Then they played Oregon the second time and really channeled the frustration from that first game where it ends with a slide, not the way he wanted to end it. Used that to fuel him for the next game. Seemed to be doing that again with Texas. Said that streak that he had, the winless streak against Texas was motivation for this one. He seems like he really, and he talked about it as well. You got to be intrinsically motivated. They got a lot of they have a lot on the line. Well, I think it's just any sort of athlete competitor uses that.
It was a joke.
Yes.
A bad one
for Ohio State.
But that to me is the matchup of this game. The storyline aside with Will Howard, can he play like he's been playing in this playoff against the best pass defense that he's faced all year? One that's second in interceptions. One that gives up only 5.5 yards per pass attempt, leading the country with a really good secondary. And can he still feed it to Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka and Carnell Tate and all those guys? Because he's been great in the playoff in terms of the ability to stretch the ball downfield vertically.
That pass he threw to Egbuka for this touchdown, the second touchdown, what a beautiful pass. I mean, probably could have thrown a little more arc, but it was right on the money. I mean, in fact, the DB actually tipped the ball a little bit.
I'm going to be doing a column on this unless you guys have done it. Sorry to interrupt you there, Bill. But I saw a stat. I couldn't believe it. That he leads the nation in 20-yard plus completion rate. Will Howard, after all the knocking him, I'll own it. He can't really throw the deep ball. Now, when I say deep ball, I meant more than 20. I meant deep, the bomb.
Well, he has always been high in that category all year. It's just whether you think that is that high percentage of 20 yards or more in the air is a product of Will Howard throwing guys open or the receivers making a great play. So it's a little bit of in the eye of the beholder type of thing.
And the last few games, he's really come up. I mean,
if
you remove the 2 playoff games, I'd be curious what the percent is.
Yeah, here I actually have those numbers because I've been doing my own thing on that. So in the playoff on passes this is per PFF, but in the playoff, Will Howard is 8 of 9. On 20-plus air yards for 271 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. The 1 pick being against Tennessee. In the regular season, he was 17 of 33, 51%.
Yeah, so he's jumped up.
So, I mean, he's completing 89% of 20 yards or more downfield.
Add that to his regular season.
Yeah.
So you were right in the regular season to criticize, and now he's answered it. Now,
but even 50% more on 20-plus yards in the regular season is still really good number. That was in the top 90th percentile.
I'd like to know 30 or 40 yards plus. That's the thing. But
nobody completes 8 of 9 passes that
No, they don't.
They're low percentage throws for a reason.
Right.
That, to me, if they do win the whole thing, is going to be the biggest reason why I think potentially, at least on the offensive side of the ball, because that is something they did not show in the regular season, their ability to stretch it vertically and take the top off defenses.
We've talked about this. MVP of this team at this moment. Maybe MVP is maybe it's more.
I'll tell you.
Maybe it's comeback player of the year more than MVP. The offensive line.
I'll say this.
Offensive line has not allowed a sack in 5 games. And we've said this before, when Simmons went down, I heard comments, there goes the national championship. And then when McLaughlin went down, Seth McLaughlin, it was absolutely there goes.
I said that.
Yeah.
I said that.
It was over. And so props to Justin Fry for getting this, because he's been ridiculed by me, by many, by most.
And the recruiting still is an issue.
It's still an issue, but they have band-aided this thing. I guess you could argue the other side, too, if I'm going to be contrarian on this. What didn't they see? These guys clearly were good enough to be starting.
Well, they weren't going to start over McLaughlin and Josh Simmons.
But maybe they should have been playing more.
I'll tell you who's the MVP of the team, I think, or at least the most indispensable player, is Donovan Jackson. Where would they be?
Well,
where would they be if he didn't make the switch and prove to be a competent or better left tackle? I mean, he's a pure guard. He had played tackle since high school.
And he has not a lot of sacks since Penn State.
And now, Abdul Carter,
his first game.
debut.
Right.
Look, that's going to happen against even, experienced tackles.
Yeah.
And so the fact that he gave them a chance by protecting Will Howard's blind side is really, that's the underrated.
Well, I agree, but he's part of the line. I guess
he's allowed them to unlock the vertical
Jeremiah
passing.
Smith and Caleb Downs are the 2 best players they have.
Well, they are, but they're not doing what they're doing if your guy doesn't protect the quarterback. I mean, their numbers are not what they are without the line getting it done.
And Caleb Downs is benefiting from the fact that Lathan Ransom's playing really well. The defensive line is playing very well. Cody Simon, just talked about him. I mean, he's playing at a level that, he was a solid guy, solid feet. Okay, he's solid. He's now become a star.
He's a star, yeah.
But again, as Ryan Day said today, it was interesting the way his demeanor. I was there, and he's serious right now. He's Mr. Intensity. And he said, and he's right, it doesn't matter what we did against Tennessee. We had to do it again. We started from scratch. We had to do it again.
Right.
And which is the right attitude.
I have a little bit of issue with that. He's right. But I think you do have to maintain the vibe of what's the confidence that.
I think they have it.
I'm just saying you can't start. You don't want to start from scratch, like just forget what we've done successfully.
I don't think that's what he was talking
No, I think it's
not, but it just seemed like it was a little coach speak to me of like, we can't, but I'm like, hey, don't forget that you cut loose and rock and rolled it, and that's why you are where you are.
I don't expect it to be tight. I think it's the same, but I think what he was saying is, as well as we've played, we got to do it again.
Oh, yeah.
We can't say, okay, we did it against Oregon, it's going to automatically happen again. What he's saying is we're going to do the same thing again tomorrow. But the thing is, they have the confidence because they've done it now 2 times in a row after kind of muddling through the regular season. There wasn't a time in the regular season against a decent opponent where they looked anything like they have in the playoff. Not at all.
No.
This will be another storyline to keep your eye on is Texas's sack leader, Colin Simmons, who's a true freshman, won freshman of the year
Over who?
The pass catcher for Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith.
In what? High school? What?
No,
This year.
The National Freshman of the Year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was, and he's a good pass rusher, good edge rusher. When that came out, I think a lot of people around Ohio State were
They looked askance.
peeved.
That's a Southern vote.
But hey, he could make his claim to that tomorrow.
He's got a chance.
Jeremiah, that'll be his Will Howard motivation.
This is a great thing about sports and about this team and about college football. You got to prove it. And this is where we are. I think we said the last time. This team, Ohio State, can be in the conversation. I'm not sure it's as good. They can be in the conversation with 19 LSU and 2020 Alabama. They can be in that conversation. But they have to do it. There's been a lot of teams that were incredible that failed at the end. I mean, look at the NFL. Was it 08? No, the 08.
The Patriots.
08 Patriots were, they were a lock.
Right.
And then the Tyree catch, the helmet catch, and Eli Manning, and they're not even mentioned as one of the greatest teams.
I think Ohio State could be in that conversation as a playoff postseason team, not a regular season team. This regular season.
I think you look at it. I look at it as I kind of look at it as where you are at the end of the season, not what you were for the whole season.
Well, I think the one thing that's definitely changed is the narrative around this season. The fact that think about where we were a month ago and where
they were left for dead a month ago.
They were left, and there were fans, and there were a lot of fans that are almost indifferent to the playoff.
Yeah,
and there were some that won a small percentage. I think a very small percentage, but there were some I think that were rooting for Ohio State to lose, so they thought they would get rid of Ryan Day. I think that faction has drifted, just diminished to almost nobody except for the real lunatic fringe, but it's a whole different vibe around this team. Coming off that Michigan game, it was, you could tell the demoralized. It was ugly. It was ugly. And now showing what they are, showing that they play to their potential as much as anyone can. Yeah. And these 2 games has just taken so much of the heat and just given them almost a new lease on life. You can sense it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see. They got 2 more to go because that's the thing that's so interesting about the expanded playoff is they could, if they lose to Texas, it's just the same thing as the 2019 team that lost to Clemson in the Fiesta Bowl or the 22 Ohio State team that lost to Georgia in the Peach Bowl. It ends up being a woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Not that that's ever happened with Ohio State.
The other thing is because every game is a chance for somebody to get hurt. I hate to throw that out there, but because there's more games, some guy, they could win the Texas game and lose Will Howard, for example. Well, they're in trouble. So, it's just because there's extra games. That's all I'm saying.
People think about the 2002 team. They didn't do anything except they played Michigan, and then they went and played Miami.
Right.
They didn't have to go through a gauntlet, and that was a very limited team in certain ways. Offensively, they had some weapons. Michael Jason's really good.
They had weapons.
But Craig Krenzel was not. He ended up playing the NFL, but he was not like an NFL quarterback.
I think the coaching, too,
was very conservative.
It was very conservative.
Right.
But Miami also, let's don't forget, that Miami team was considered at that time the best team in the history of college football.
The year before.
Well, right, but they still had a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
So, the 2021 Miami was incredible. They crushed Nebraska, right? 2001. And my decades, going to get my decades.
Yeah, but the point is that Ohio State team had to play 1 postseason game to win it all.
Right.
And 14, they had to play 3. They had to play Wisconsin, which got them in the playoff, and they had to win, obviously, Alabama and Oregon. And this one's got to go through 4 games. That's tough.
Yeah.
This is actually, I hadn't thought about this as much until just now, but this is not the first playoff meeting between Ryan Day and Steve Sarkisian.
NFL?
No.
Who would
2020 because
Alabama, right?
But he wasn't head coach.
no, but he was the one calling plays for Alabama, and he's the one calling plays
I could
in
have
tomorrow's
called
game.
for that. I could have called plays for that Alabama team.
Well, he called some good. I'll say he called some good ones because there were some matchups where Devontae Smith was being covered by Tough Borland, so he put his guys in some good positions.
Fine.
And that I'll be interested to see tomorrow. Is he's a creative play caller.
Here's another little stat.
And-
Don't steal it from me.
Okay.
But only one team in the history of college football has won a national title with 2 losses. LSU.
27 less miles.
That was
Team to beat Ohio State.
that was the 220. What did you say?
27.
2007.
Yeah, 2007 LSU. Now Minnesota, technically, in 1960 had 1 loss, was named national championship because the bowl was
UPI thing.
before the
Yeah.
bowl went and lost the bowl game, so they finished with 2 losses.
So 07 LSU and
Well, 60 doesn't really. 60, they were named national champs with 1 loss.
That was like what Ohio State did in
But ended with
1970.
2. So it's a little quirky there. But one of these teams, well, I guess if Penn State or Notre Dame, Penn State has what, 1 loss?
Penn's
2 losses.
2 losses.
Notre Dame has 1 loss.
But again, Notre Dame didn't play.
I know what I'm saying is,
championship.
one of
for
these
shorter
teams
season.
is going to have 2 losses.
Yeah.
Unless you.
but you're probably going to have more of that in this expanded
Absolutely.
playoff era.
And Ryan Day pointed to that
Yeah.
when they were asked. It was an interesting question and a good answer. These 2 teams open next season against each other, and the question was, why are you doing that? And what they said, both coaches said, look, in a 12-team playoff, it's okay to lose a game. It's not like March Madness where if you lose, you're done. And so you're gonna find that. You don't like that, or you do like it?
I was a big believer. Well, it's because we've had to adjust. You have to almost like it now. But I liked that every week was a playoff game. You could not lose. There was something to it. I get that you have better opportunity now, and it's more like the NFL and that type of thing.
Well,
It's a different style race now. It's like a horse race where you come out and you got to come out of the gates and you get 1 lap, and that's how the old system was.
Well, yeah.
And now it's a little longer of a
I would
race.
say this. I think
You get a chance to rally.
that this year is not as big a deal. Like 15 years from now, if this is still the system, which I assume, the regular season will take a little bit of a hit. I didn't think it did this year because it was the first year of it. But when you
And
get
new conferences.
yes, when you get used to we lost, so what? I don't think there was we lost, so what this year, other than Michigan. If they'd have. I just think over the long term, the regular season will take a little bit of a hit here.
But you know what? That may be better. It may be,
Be better for players.
Maybe unhealthy.
I'm not
it's unhealthy to think that every
my
game
job
you must win.
isn't to make the fans healthy or unhealthy. They are what they are.
It'll help Ohio State next year. It's going to be a very young team. They replace so many starters, and so if that game were to keep them out of the playoff, that would suck for them. Next year, if they win the game, great. If they lose the game, people say, okay, it's a young team, and the new quarterback. We presume it'll be Julian Sand, and okay, you learn from it and you move on.
Could be Quinn Ewers.
He's going to transfer. Well, he's back.
How about that? Transfers back.
That's pretty good.
Maybe they want somebody for the Tristan Gebbia role.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, jeez.
Bring somebody in as the backup.
Would Quinn Ewers be the starter?
If he came back, sure he would. He's
would
not
be.
coming back.
I'm not saying it. I'm just curious.
I know.
Yeah, but you hear just like, Julian's saying he's the next. I'm like, is he?
I don't know if he's
How
going.
great he is. Oh, no, I agree. He's going to be the starter more than likely. But that doesn't mean he's incredible.
We don't know.
Right? That's the thing.
We don't know.
Anyhow. What's your picks? You guys pick the Buckeyes?
I did. I don't remember the score. I really don't. But I did. I think they're going to win semi-comfortably.
I think I was 27-21 Ohio State.
It's yours?
Yeah.
I really don't remember what I had. But I think it was maybe 10 to 14
I'm
points.
with 13. 30 to 17. So.
And honestly, I could see them blowing them out because the formula for Ohio State blowing them out is this. Texas can't run the ball. They just tee off on Quinn Ewers. He throws a couple of picks. Ohio State does what they do on offense, and game over.
How does Texas win?
Texas wins, but they find a run game. They start to make Ohio State feel like they're not so invincible. Quinn Ewers slings it. Will Howard makes some mistakes.
It's close in the second half.
I think Quinn Ewers has to play the game of his life.
Yes,
I would agree.
And that's ultimately, I think, and that's ultimately,
receivers.
and that's ultimately why I like Ohio State. Is I don't see the way this Ohio State defense is right now. I think it would take a special offense to figure out a way to beat them, or specifically maybe a Michigan type of we're just going to grind out yards and slow the game down. But that's not Texas's style at all. Texas plays at a much faster tempo than Ohio State does. Will push the pace a lot, and I don't like that matchup generally against teams when they're facing Ohio State. If you are a fast-paced offense that is inefficient at times, which is how they are in the run game, and they give up a lot of sacks, it's a bad recipe, I think, going against Ohio State. So this is a case where I think Jim Knowles' side of the ball just carries them. Even if Ohio State's offense does not play like it did against Tennessee or Oregon, I think the defense is good enough to win them an ugly game.
You can't play a Michigan game.
No,
you can't have 3 picks.
But it could have a Penn State-ish game where you have a couple nice drives, but maybe you have to slow it down at times. Maybe even have a pick like they opened the game with.
I picked 30-17, which means 20 points wins it, right? 18 points wins it. So it's not like I think they have to have 30.
The other thing is that Quinn Ewers is not as mobile as Dylan Gabriel, and that's the kind of quarterback. At Tennessee, their quarterback, their offense, what little offense they had, was his scrambles. Arch Manning is more mobile than Quinn Ewers. And so, that'd be interesting to see if Texas gets in a hole. Would they be tempted? Yeah. Would they be tempted to turn to Arch?
Could you get a Tua Jalen Hurts type situation? Right. Alabama,
exactly.
That'd be interesting.
I just think there are more pathways to victory for Ohio State than there are for Texas.
I totally agree. I was just asking, how does Texas?
But Texas,
I think turnovers and special team freakish.
Of course, Ohio State missed 2 field goals against Michigan.
Texas's kicking situation is also a little anemic. So I know that's been a question mark for Ohio State at times. Jaden Fielding did get on the board twice in the Rose Bowl, but probably not enough where it's going to make people forget about Michigan. But Texas has their own kicking issues. I don't think either of these teams probably wants it to come down to the leg of a place kicker.
I agree. I think this is all about riding that momentum. Bill talked about it. I think they're on a momentum high, and they're just going to keep rolling. It's better to not have 3 weeks off. It's better to not have between a Big Ten championship game and a bowl game where you could lose it. They've got it going.
This might be the perfect amount of time between games because they're playing. It was 21 days between the end of the regular season and your first round game, and they've had about 10 days in the subsequent rounds. That's probably just the right amount of time for guys who are banged up to recover a little bit. But it also gives your staff more time to game plan. So I think that's plays into their advantage as well. But maybe even Texas as well because they got a good staff as well.
Yeah.
Well, it should be a fascinating game. I mean, it's and then they'll play if they win. They'll play Penn State or Notre Dame. I think they'll play Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's better than Penn State.
Don't date yourself too much because that game is being played tonight.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Well, they look like a fool.
You can
I'm on record saying I'll go with Penn State. I think Penn State's going to win.
I like Notre Dame.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Once again, Joey and I are right and Rob's wrong.
What else is
well, bag on my face. I hate eggs.
Oh my gosh.
Well, thanks everybody for sticking with us. And if you're traveling down to North Texas for the game,
be careful.
Stay safe. Or turn around.
It's not as bad as we thought it would be, but I have not driven.
Well, except that they closed the airport to incoming flights today. So
knock on wood, it doesn't get any worse, and everybody stays safe. And if you're staying home and watching in your man cave or living room, enjoy the game as well.
Enjoy the game.
Thanks for listening.
Be sure and subscribe to the Buckeye Extra podcast in the iTunes Store, the Google Play Store, or on Stitcher.